and for their ongoing support for the county fair. They wanted us to extend that as well. 3M donated personal protective equipment supplies, including N95 masks, to county hospitals, gloves, and responder suits for emergency response to fire departments, and tape and miscellaneous supplies for administration supplies. Several staff have supported initial vaccination clinics with emergency medical responder services, in addition to 3M's occupational health nurse helping administer vaccines. We're very grateful to you. Thank you for coming today. If you guys could introduce yourself and tell us your roles at 3M, that would be great.
Thank you. I'm Steve Jensen. I'm the Environmental Health and Safety Manager at Hutch, and have been in this facility for 22 years.
John Arlt. I'm a EHS technologist, but I run the ERT team at the site. 20 years.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
we're lucky to have 3M in our state, and now, one of the biggest plants right here in McLeod County. So thank you for all you do. I get to work close with you on a lot of different fronts, so I appreciate all you do for us and the county as a whole. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. I'd echo that as well. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Consideration of agenda items. Is there any additions or corrections?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I would like to remove items 7A and 7B. They'll be reviewed at a later date.
Any other corrections or additions? And if not, I take a motion to approve the consent agenda items. Motion's been made.
Second.
And seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of the agenda items, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda. Any additions or corrections to it? Motion made by Commissioner Nagel. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Schmalz. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. COVID-19 report. Barrett, good morning.
Good morning. So due to the holiday, my COVID-19 numbers are from last Friday, September 3rd. As of that date, McLeod County has had a total of 4,746 positive cases of COVID-19. There have been 205 new cases, in the last 14 days. The age range is from 1 to 100, and 7 people of this 205 new cases needed hospitalization. So 7 people were hospitalized. Since March of 2021, there have been 17 identified cases of reinfection in McLeod County. So that means they've had COVID-19. They tested positive for a second time. 4 of those cases showed up in the last 2 weeks. And those 17 cases are not included in that initial number that I shared of positive cases. Currently, we have 158 active cases that require isolation within the county. And unfortunately, we have had 61 COVID-19 related deaths since the start of the pandemic. As always, check out our COVID-19 dashboard on the county's website for more statistics. That is updated weekly at the beginning of the week. As relates to our vaccination efforts at McLeod County Public Health, we have held 59 vaccination clinics to date and administered 5,142 first doses, 3,888 second doses, and as of last week, 3 third doses to those who are immunocompromised, for a total of 9,030 doses administered. We have 1 vaccination clinic scheduled for this week on Thursday from 9 to 11 a.m. here at the McLeod County Government Center. We continue to vaccinate, with Moderna, which is currently only approved for those 18 plus. And again, you can check out our website for more information on how to register for that clinic if you are interested. I mentioned the 3 people that we were able to give third doses for, so we are now approved and have an updated protocol from our medical provider or medical consultant, to vaccinate those that are immunocompromised with the third dose. GRH, Glencoe Regional Health, and Hutchinson Health will be instructing their patients who fall into this priority category and need Moderna to call McLeod County Public Health to get vaccinated. Both of those healthcare facilities only have the Pfizer at this time. So if someone needs a third dose and they started their series with Moderna, they should contact McLeod County Public Health and we will get them scheduled. We've heard a lot of talk about the booster, which is different than that third dose. We are still waiting for that to be approved. We are not sure when that will be, but we are ready and waiting and willing to vaccinate with those boosters if needed. Vaccination statistics for McLeod County as of September 1st, 50% of people in McLeod County have received at least one dose of COVID-19 vaccination. Of the 12-plus population, we're at 58.8% receiving at least one dose. The 16-plus population, we're at 60.8%, and of the 65-plus population, we're at 85.8%. Those continue to creep up, but very slowly. Slower than we would like. Let's see. We are, as of late last week, we had heard rumblings, but it kind of came to a head late last week with regards to testing capacity in our community. We no longer have the Armory in Hutchinson to be able to do that testing, so we are reliant on our healthcare providers and a couple private entities, and they're just not able to keep up with the demand for testing. So we put in some calls for help to our coalition and to our public health partners at the state, hoping to reopen the Armory and get some other options for testing available for people of McLeod County, especially with school starting. We just know that the need for that is going to be more than the sites can handle right now. I think, let's see here. We're providing only the third dose for patients that received a letter from their healthcare provider, as I mentioned before. So if there's a patient of Glencoe Regional or Hutch Health that receives a letter saying you've been identified as immunocompromised, you need a third dose of Moderna, here's your letter to go to McLeod County Public Health and get your vaccination. We continue to work with our local clinics and pharmacies to support the third dose vaccination. We anticipate that the COVID-19 booster doses will be approved as early as September 20th, which means we'll be vaccinating a whole lot of more people. And I think that's it.
Thank you, Barrett. I do have a question. What's the decision on or why are we not having the facility to test? Is it money? I mean, or what are...
It's really capacity. They're just so short-staffed that they can't keep up.
Because the demand for testing is going up. Especially with schools and the employers on the mandate of shots. I mean, I don't know, DHS, or is there any ideas from HHS or from our health? Or... We just put in the call kind of late last week, late Thursday, Friday, for help. To let them know that the testing, we just can't keep up in the county. There are some options that people can order a test online. That takes time though too. So we are working through things, and hopefully we can start up that Armory again, because we took it for granted. That's definitely going to be important. I mean,
absolutely. Because
I personally know there's cases around again, probably more than I remember even at the peak. But the only good thing is people are sick, but they're not critical, let me put it that way.
Sure. Yeah.
Any other questions from the board? Thank you, Barrett.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barrett. Sheila, do you have?
Thank you. So for administration update on our COVID-19, we typically have been talking about the coronavirus relief funds. Of course, we're working right now with the American Rescue Plan Act funds. Those have been allocated to counties, cities, and townships. Up until today, or up until now, we didn't know of a due date for the cities and townships. So we've been trying to help them along, gather whatever information that we all can together, working pretty closely. Now they've set a due date, and it's actually pretty soon. So it is October 4th that all of the cities and townships have to apply for their funds if they want to take the funds that have been allocated to them. We thoroughly notified all of the cities and townships last week. We have a pretty good list of contacts. Over the weekend, I heard from quite a few of them that still want to apply and need some assistance. We'll be arranging that. We've been attending meetings when we can, or if they ask us to, and that's been going well also. We had a meeting with many of them, I think over a week ago already now, and talked about different types of things that are eligible and what is not. And we will also be meeting with all of them. We had it arranged for October 6th, which is a little unfortunate because they have to apply before then, right? We're still going to meet on October 6th in Hutchinson and Glencoe during the morning and evening for those city and township and community partners that need some assistance and that can help us figure out what they're working on. However, I wish that it was before the due date for them to apply for their funds. It's not. As far as COVID-19 update at the county, I don't think things have changed quite very much with our employee population being affected, thankfully, but we have had exposures that have been handled. We continue to socially distance throughout our facilities and follow recommendations, and our facilities are still open. So I don't have anything else unless you have questions.
I don't have a question really, but some of the correspondence that I'm receiving is that on this COVID testing, and that's why I asked Barrett if it was fiscal or financial, because some of the emails and stuff I'm getting is they're asking us to use our ARPS funding to fund the testing, and I don't know if that's the best place for that, but just a comment on some of the articles that I'm getting from other states and other counties.
Okay. We haven't made any decisions. I should maybe update the public on that. We have not made any decisions on confirmation of where the ARPA funds will be spent. That is still being worked through. Again, they have to be allocated by December 31st, 2024. They have to be spent by December 31st, 2026 on the items of which they were allocated towards. So I haven't had any comments about testing sites and those funds, but we'll keep you updated if we do. Thank you.
Board, any questions for Sheila? Before we move on, thank you. Auditor Treasurer Connie. Morning, Connie. Morning, Sue.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Today I'm here for one item to consider the approval of the services of Streamworks out of Blaine, Minnesota for the processing of the Truth in Taxation, otherwise known as TNT, notices, tax statements, and valuation notice for an estimated cost of $13,754 with funds coming from the Auditor Treasurer budget. So the history on this, the county used OSG for printing of 2021 TNT notices, tax statements, and valuation notices. OSG did take over the services of NBS, who was our vendor that we had done business with for many years. The county also worked with American Solutions for Business, ASB, for the printing of the forms. Pre-printed forms do provide the opportunity to proof prior to printing the data on the forms, and also gives us the reassurance of accuracy of those forms. ASB has been a vendor who works closely with the state on updating the forms according to statute and coordinating statement and notice printing. The county assessor, Sue Schultz, and I have reviewed alternative tax statement vendors for 2022 services. Processing costs for 2020 and 2021 were $14,495 and $14,218 respectively. Cost estimates received for 2022 services from Streamworks are $13,754, and another estimate provided from Masters Touch was $12,714. Both estimates received are below the current cost. The basic difference in price there is that Masters Touch does not use pre-printed forms. They print as they print the statement. So there is no form actually to proof and check. The assessor and I recommend using Streamworks, as the county will still be able to utilize ASB for the printing of the forms. Streamworks currently has 26 Minnesota County clients that share our same tax system, and they also work very closely with the Egan Post Office. Questions for Sue or I?
I have no questions other than your last paragraph kind of answered my questions, and make sure you're picking the one that you feel is going to do the best job. I don't know, and then the question I had is, it says it works with the Egan Post Office. I mean, that's telling me that's good in all post offices, or I didn't know what that really meant, so.
Well, just that they do work with a Minnesota post office. So they're, in Minnesota, the other vendor is not. They're out of Washington, I believe.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
It's no secret, we've had some struggles with this, and a lot of it, if people choose to believe us, it's been a vendor issue. So it was time for us to shop that out, and we have a responsibility to fix that, and I think we have. I mean, time will tell, right? But I appreciate the work and effort you put into that, so thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
move to approve request for Streamworks in an estimated cost of $13,754.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Smalls to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Luthens. Is there any more discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Public Works, John.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Item A is to consider joining the Bell Lake Association. This is an ongoing basis. $50 a year is their current dues for that. As you know, Pippenberg Park resides on a large portion of Bell Lake. The Bell Lake Association does a number of improvement projects on that lake, and it was requested that we join. I think for years they've been kind of wondering why we haven't been a member, and he brought it up, so that's why I'm bringing it forward today. So there's currently 69 landowners on that lake, including the county.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
I think it's a good partnership. Even without the membership, we've worked well and got some projects done with that. So with that, I move to approve the request.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Nagel to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Luthens. Any discussion?
I just have one, Mr. Chair. Where would this put us? Where would this put us in terms of a membership to like Lake Marion?
I think you'll see that coming forward as well. That's what the park managers talked about too, once we heard this request from Bell, because there's other Lake Marion Association or a similar one down there. So I think you'll see that in the future.
Yeah, I think if we're going to do it for one, we should do it for all of them where we have our public land.
Yeah, I agree.
As a part of that.
I agree.
That's my problem as well. I think it opens a lot of memberships that we could belong to, and I know our environmental department works well with the lakes. We spend a lot of money. We've worked well with them and spent county money on both Stalls or on Bell and Lake Marion over the time. So I mean, I really do have an issue with opening up that Pandora's box of joining all these memberships, because I could make the same argument for Pheasants Forever to you. We've got a lot of land around them that does that good, so that's my issue. But any more discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Darrell? Roll call. Sorry.
Aye.
Paul?
Yes.
I'm no. Joe?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmalz?
Yes.
Okay, it passes 4-1. Next item, John?
Yep, item B would be, we'd like to consider hiring Erickson Engineering, they're out of Eden Prairie, Minnesota, for design engineering services for the rehab of Bridge 43515. This is on County Road 71 near the landfill. Estimated cost for that fee is $8,900. The bridge is in need of a new wearing course on it and a couple other minor fixes on it. It's in our 5-year plan for next year. And the bridge decks, these projects are something we don't typically do in-house. It's the first time we've done a deck overlay like this, so we'd like to hire them to perform that. We've used Erickson Engineering on a number of other bridge projects in the past.
I have no questions. It looks,
Mr. Chair,
go ahead.
move to approve a request to hire Erickson Engineering for an estimated total fee of $8,900.
Motion made by Commissioner Schmalz. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Commissioner Luthens. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Items C and D are kind of related, but we broke them up because they're two different portions of this. So item C is to consider approval of temporary permits to construct for a MnDOT construction project SP 430747. This is an ADA improvement project that MnDOT is planning through Glencoe and on Trunk Highway 22 in 2023. These permits are needed because they have to go beyond current right-of-way a little bit just for the construction of those sidewalk facilities primarily. So what this item relates to is easements needed on the northwest corner of this property, of the government center property, and then a portion of strip along the west side of the courthouse along Trunk Highway 22. And again, this item is just for, allows them to access our property to build the project, and then the permits go back or go away after a 5-year period. Typically, it's just that first construction season is all that's needed.
And
There are no costs associated with this at all.
John, the only thing, I was with you at that meeting. Is there something in there about that access point?
That's item D.
Okay, that's an idea. Okay.
Yes.
Board, any questions?
Mr. Chair, move to approve item C, temporary permits as requested.
Motion made by Commissioner Schmalz to approve construction project SP 4307-47. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Nagel. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. D.
Yep, now item D is to consider sale of .0378 acres of the county property, and that's across the street from the government center. Same project. This portion of the agenda item, they need to buy a permanent easement of 7 more additional feet to build the sidewalk along there. So it's the purchase of that 7 feet of property, and then it's in the similar temporary easement for that project to build that. They have appraised that land at $3,700, and we think that's a fair appraisal, so we'd recommend moving forward with that, contingent upon retaining one of the access points along there. Currently, there are 2 access points there, so I think it'd be in the county's best interest to make sure that's in the language or make sure that's taken care of before we get something in writing from MnDOT to be guaranteed an access point on 22 along there.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I just want to add in with this item as well that this property where the access point would go to also has another street to the north, of course, that could have another access point.
And I would just note that the state has the authority to condemn this if we don't agree to it. Not that we should disagree with it, but it makes sense to agree to it and do it the easy way.
I mean, my comment is I have no problem except for the donate the property part.
Yeah, and that portion, we went back and forth on that, and where MnDOT came back with, after a discussion with the county attorney, when the county cannot donate property, they went away from that, and they're okay with the offering the appraised value. So that's where the current documents are written for.
Okay, thank you, John, because I have no problem with the working relationship, but we just bought the property. I mean, obviously, the taxpayer knows what it is, and if we got something in return, but as long as that verbiage is out, I have no problem. It's up to the rest of the board.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
And John, to your knowledge, are the other properties along the highway also, is the state looking to acquire, that boulevard area the same as what they're looking for
I
here?
assume so, yes.
I mean, I don't know if I want to call it a necessary evil, but I've been privy to the conversations getting ready for our crosswalk and different things and through the city of Glencoe. I mean, it's what needs to be done. There is no sidewalk there.
Well, and I think adding a sidewalk there should only enhance the
Yeah.
value of our property, right, for sale.
Mr. Chair, I'll just add with John, because we did discuss during our meeting too, that this should not affect the marketability of the property in a negative way. Of course, the sidewalk and updating to the ADA standards should only be
Right.
helpful.
Board?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I'll move to approve.
Motion made by Commissioner Nagel. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Luthens. Is there any more discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you,
Just a
John.
quick update, we have seal coat projects remaining for the year. Given last week's rain, they were planning on coming to the county toward the end of this week, so as soon as we know for sure. Again, I don't know if they were pushed back from other projects last week, but we'll make sure we get a news release out and let people know.
How is Morningside coming? I know it's
Keep
tough
bugging
getting
them, and so the last we heard from Don Hinks is they're still on, other projects and so forth, so we're hoping for mid to late September is the last we've heard, and we've been touching that up. We touched it up again today, the 2 intersections. We've heard a lot of feedback. I read a lot of feedback. There's not much rain in the forecast this week, so hopefully today's touch-up will make that intersection, be okay for a while.
It's
But
really tough. I
it's
mean, I've
busy.
watched you guys doing it, and when there's water sitting, it's tough. I mean, it's tough to get those holes to stick without spending a ton of money on it, but I did get an email from you or someone. There's one crew maybe coming back sooner, or there's a chance of that. I mean, it'd be nice to see something going on.
Yeah, we've been bugging Don Hinks, and I guess that's all.
It is what it is. It had to start raining, it is what it is. Thanks,
Thank you.
John.
Yep.
Environmental Services, Mark. Good morning, Mark.
Morning, gentlemen. 3 items for your consideration this morning, and we will start with A. Consider conditional use permit 21-15, application by Scott Temple on behalf of Novel Energy Solutions, St. Paul, Minnesota, for essential services of a 1 megawatt community solar garden array system for the purpose of electrical generation through solar energy interconnected to an XL energy substation. The applicant has secured a facility easement of approximately 10.5 acres on a 65-acre parcel from the property owner, Simon Sterner. This project would be known as Novel Sterner Solar LLC. No wetland impacts are identified per the National Wetland Inventory NWI map. This property is located in Section 2 of Winstead Township and within a 2-mile range of the city of Winstead. The Winstead Town Board recommended denial at their August 12, 2021 regular meeting with findings for denial. The city of Winstead submitted a letter along with Resolution 21-39 explaining their opposition and denial due to future city growth plan. The Planning Commission recommended approval with a 4-to-1 vote at their meeting on August 25th, 2021 with the following conditions. And I will read those to you. Number 1, a bond or letter of credit in the amount of $144,000 shall be provided to the McLeod County Environmental Service Office prior to any permits being issued. This surety reflects a cost to McLeod County of $40 per panel. Number 2, the applicant shall restore the site to its original and natural state once the solar facility is no longer in use. Number 3, the contractor's proof of insurance shall be submitted during the construction of the facility. Number 4, contact person and phone number for weed control and other concerns will be filed with the Environmental Service Office, and there shall be a placard posted at the entrance visible from Simon Sterner's driveway, naming a contact person with a current phone number. Number 5, a landscape buffer plan and vegetative management plan shall be provided to the Environmental Service Office. Included in the plan shall be a row of maintained healthy living 4-foot trees with vegetative shrubbery along the exterior perimeter of the project boundary. This buffer shall be planted and maintained to remain healthy and live. Number 6, a 10-foot agricultural fencing with 24-inch kick panels, plates mounted at a 45-degree angle toward the exterior of the project. Area shall be installed for site security and safety around the perimeter of the project. And just as a note on number 6, that is basically replacing 2 rows of barbed wire, which the county has approved as a condition in the past. Number 7, applicant shall meet all NPDES permit requirements if approved. That's the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System. It's for stormwater. If it exists, that's a state permit. Number 8, applicant shall preserve the existing drain tile and repair if any tile is broken. Repairs shall be performed by a drainage contractor. Number 9, applicants shall apply for a McLeod County land use permit within 1 year if approved. Number 10, applicants shall submit an approved interconnection agreement from XL Energy within 1 year from date of conditional use permit approval. Number 11, applicants shall provide a stray voltage test to McLeod County Environmental Services Office prior to construction and before energization. Number 12, education awareness with local fire district in case of fire and natural disaster, along with written proof that this meeting took place. Invite the Winstead Town Board to the meeting. And number 13, culvert on County Ditch 11 is the responsibility of Novel Energy Solutions applicant and the landowner if failure and replacement is required. With that being said, we did have a number of citizens adjacent to this project that were at the public hearing on the 25th of August. And there are 2 emails that I'd like to read that came in after that meeting before I turn it back to the board. And it is an email that we did receive from Mr. and Mrs. Backer, Paul Backer, Bethany Backer, 626 Pheasant Run, Winstead, Minnesota. We are in opposition to the application of the use permit filed by Scott Temple representing Novel Energy Solutions LLC on property owned by Scott Sterner, requesting a 1 megawatt community solar garden to be known as Novel Sterner Solar LLC on the property owned by Simon Sterner behind our property at 626 Pheasant Run in Winstead. So that is what the email says, and I believe the intent was property owned by Scott, and that should be Simon Sterner. So with that being said, the second email we did receive came from the city of Winstead, came in on Tuesday, September 7th, so this morning. And it is an email from Adam Burkholz, who is the city administrator for the city of Winstead. Hello, Mark and Sheila. It is my understanding on September 7th, 2021, McLeod County Board of Commissioners meeting agenda will include consideration of a conditional use permit for a solar garden on PID number 14.002.1000. The Winstead City Council is opposed to the proposed project due to the location relative to the Winstead urban growth area. I would ask that you please forward the attached information to the county commissioners and include it as part of the official meeting record. Please don't hesitate to contact me with any questions or comments. Respectfully, Adam Burkholz, and that is in your packet. So with that, I'll turn it back to the board if there's questions for me. I do know there are individuals here that may wish to speak to this.
Board, is there any questions before we open up to comments? Is there, I mean, just stand by, Mark, if you would. Is there some comment from the, you see Adam's here? There's some hands up back there. Go ahead. Come on up. State your name and where you're from.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Brittany Krebsbach. I'm actually here on behalf of Scott Temple. He had another meeting this morning, but I'm representing Novel Energy Solutions along with my colleague Paula Fitzgerald. Just want to give a really quick background on Novel Energy Solutions. It's founded by 4th and 5th generation farmers, cattle farmers from St. Charles, Minnesota. So we love partnering with our local small farmers for this resilient energy effort. Simon Sterner and his family, the landowners of this project, are present to voice their support for the project this morning. The land has been in their family and farming for generations now. We've worked with both Mark from the county and the family to find the best suited placement on this property. Lease area is to the south and is a somewhat isolated area bordered by a county ditch. At the public the planning meeting last month, there was some concern brought up about the resiliency or lifetime of the solar arrays, and I just want to note that our solar panels and inverters do both have a 20-plus year warranty. Lifetime resiliency is, on our hands as well as our manufacturer's hands to be appropriately handled for necessary updates and fixes. As Mark stated, for one of the conditions, we're providing screening for this project. Our current screening plan, which will be tweaked to accommodate the conditions that Mark laid out, but currently it has 27 Norway spruce, 28 Black Hills spruce, both 6 feet tall, not 4 feet as needed, and then 28 bushes of 2 feet. So we did want to provide that. We don't necessarily always provide it right off the bat, but we did want to do that because of the adjacent residential uses. And that was also a topic of discussion at our last meeting from the residents, like Mark stated. People, worried about losing their scenery. There was also some concerns of stray voltage at the meeting. We have not had any issues with our farms with stray voltage, and just to, keep peace in mind, we have offered pre and post testing for one of our conditions of approval. And then another big topic of discussion, of course, was with the city of Winstead. Both Novel and Brian from IPS Solar, who is also at the Planning Commission meetings, have voiced how this isn't necessarily a huge hurdle for the city of Winstead's development. This project would remove only 10 acres of land for a 25-year period, and city of Winstead has noted that they plan to develop in anywhere from like 20 to 40 years, I believe. And we wanted to also note the issues with actually developing that site, not only with, landowners. It's not the Sterner family's desire to request annexation, and they wish to continue farming, and this project would give them the stable source of income to do that and keep the farm in the family. But also there's no possible connectivity to the existing street grid, and properties to the south are fully developed with no stub roads, and there is a ditch and natural area between the city and the Sterner property. So that specific lease area that we are proposing for the project is not as feasible as others for future development of Winstead. Like Mark stated, the Planning Commission did approve this project as well as the Stewie project that I believe we're discussing right after this. I'm happy to answer any questions. As you also probably noticed, there is a assurance through a bond or letter of credit, I believe, of about $172,000 for this project.
Pardon me, I didn't write your name down again, so I...
That's all right. My name is Brittany Krebsbach from Novel.
Brittany, is there any questions for Brittany from the board?
Sorry if I talked really fast.
Oh, it was fine.
I have one, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Later on in their meeting, we'll be talking about amendments to an ordinance, and one of the things that within that is an interconnection agreement, so that we know that there's a serious effort in place and not just a permit that might just cause issues here at the border and through its process and never actually materializes. So how far are we to knowing that this is a serious application, that if it's approved, it will actually be utilized?
Absolutely, Mr. Chair, if I can answer that. I really appreciate you actually bringing up that item, because that is something that Novel and other solar developers do have quite an issue with. We are more than happy to offer that interconnection agreement, within the year of the project, and we understand that it is a lot of work to go through permitting. I mean, we go through that effort as well to meet the conditions of, ordinances and codes and things. But the reality is that our company, and my colleague Paula Fitzgerald can actually probably speak to this better than I can, but we spend anywhere from $18,000 to $28,000 just with Excel, obtaining that interconnection agreement. So that is a huge financial burden, actually, and makes the project nearly infeasible and impossible from a financial perspective to actually obtain that IA interconnection agreement before a permit, because we're not going to move forward in the particular studies that we have to go through with Excel if a project isn't going to be permitted. And as we've seen from, the townships and the nearby cities and things, there's a lot of hurdles in a permitting fashion to go around. So yeah, there is that huge financial burden, and we understand that it is a time and financial burden as well for the county and township staff and things. And we're happy to make that, as easier as we can. But yeah, that's as best as I can put that. Paula, did you have anything to add?
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Go ahead.
we have to go by the rules that are in effect as of the date of the application, so you aren't able to consider that issue with regard to this application. If you want to make that a requirement for future applications, you are free to amend the ordinance, and I think we'll have some more discussions about that at a later date. But you can't take that into account for this application.
No, I understand that.
And thanks, Mr. Young, for bringing that up. And you may comment again. I'm struggling with that as well, because I happen to know what's coming up, and to make a decision on these, well, there's two of them actually, so it's hard to struggle knowing what's in those amendments. So
You have to go by the rules that are in effect at the time of the application.
Okay. Go ahead, Paula.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, if I may, Paula Fitzgerald, Novel Energy Solutions. I just wanted to add on that this application, we are second in the queue with Excel right now. We actually were in the system impact study phase. Moving forward, there was another project that we were working with that their permit was denied, and so ours was pushed back. So we are second in the queue, so I would anticipate we should probably have our interconnection agreement within 9 to 10 months, according to the Excel timelines. So just FYI.
Any questions for Brittany? Sir, thank you, Brittany. I'll may call on you again if we have some questions here, but is there anyone else here? We're on the four side. Well, go ahead. She had her hand up before. Sorry, Adam, but she.
Did anyone need a site plan copy by chance? It's in back.
Good morning. State your name and where you're from.
I'm Katie Raymond from Winstead, 624 Pheasant Run.
Go ahead.
So just in response to this solar field going in, it would be about 100 feet diagonally behind our home. So some of the issues that I have with it going in would be solar leakage and the testing issue. When I think about research and I think about research that's out there, and when you test for something, having an independent tester come in versus one's own company always gives validity to the test. And so I think about them putting up a multi-million-dollar solar panel system in our backyard, and then testing doesn't seem appropriate. It seems like one should go and test for solar leakage at an existing facility with an outside testing agency. So that would be one issue. I wouldn't ever choose to put a home next to any kind of energy, whatever it may be. Home values, that would be an issue. The solar, solar farm is surrounded on 3 sides by Winstead City residents. I think about light pollution and visual pollution. We all are split levels in our neighborhood, so our main levels are up. So we definitely would be able to see that through our backyards. I think about material and waters pollution. They call it drainage ditch, but it actually looks like a little stream that pulses through Pheasant Run. And so as I do my reading, there are issues as panels break down and some of the things that are in the panels that can leak into the water system, and that drainage ditch flows directly into Winstead Lake. The Winstead Expansion, I look at Cokato and Winstead and how close we are in proximity to Minnetonka, and I think even if he does not want to sell, that's where Winstead is going, one of the directions. So I think about solar fields or solar farms. You don't ever see them in the middle of a town. They are usually standalones. So I have no issue with them as standalones. I do have issue with them with our city and I love Winstead. And just a thought, I realize people have their own farms, but just think about if you would want one in your own backyard. And then finally, the 20-year resiliency that she mentioned of the materials. If this is a 25 to 30-year lease or whatever it is, there really is issue of breakdown, issue of just displacing habitats in these solar farms. And then just finally, it benefits one, but many have loss in this issue. So that would be my final thing. And actually one more final thing. There was another letter by Tim and Tia Fury sent through email that didn't get read. So they are 3 neighbors down from me. So they had also opposed the issue. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Adam had his hand up before, too. I'll take Adam. Thanks, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Adam Burkles, Winstead City Administrator. As I stated in the information I sent, this proposed project is surrounded on 3 sides by Winstead municipal boundary. Those properties are zoned residential and developed as residential. Also recently, we have commissioned a comprehensive housing study. That study does show an extensive need for growth of residential properties in Winstead. We're anticipated 200 new lots needed for development within the next decade. And that's obviously due to the industrial growth we've had in town recently. With that information, Winstead has been working hard to put together zoning documents, zoning plans to allow for orderly growth and compatible growth. We're not explicitly against solar development. In fact, our zoning code does allow for it within our industrial district. We feel it's more compatible in those areas. But this area where the proposed project is located is certainly planned for low to medium density residential. So again, we have worked toward installing certain infrastructures in the area and are anticipating growth in that area in terms of residential growth. So again, the city of Winstead does explicitly oppose this application in McLeod County. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. Go ahead.
I have a question for Adam.
Hold on.
Is that a floodplain at all?
I don't have that answer, if it is or not. That'd be a question for the DNR.
I thought Mark said no.
So,
On this particular request, there's just a slight area to the east of the project area that they would not be putting panels on. So, yes and no.
Even though what's going on today with all the climate and weather, can't overrun that ditch?
Yeah, all I can answer is in regards to the maps that we have to administer that FEMA has given us and that we've approved back in 2015. So until we remap again and they tell us differently, those are the maps we use.
Thank you.
I apologize. Any other questions for me before I sneak out of here?
I have none, board. Thank you, Adam.
Mr. Chair. Can I just mention, Katie Raymond again. I don't know anything about floodplains, but I do know as far as being in that development, the drainage ditch that runs through there, which looks like a stream, it does overflow quite frequently in the spring. So it comes up neighbors' backyards.
Thank you. We'll get there yet. State your name and where you're from.
Simon Sterner, I'm the property owner, 821 6th Street North, Winstead. Okay, and to comment on her with flooding, it does flood after our property because our ditch is completely open and theirs have fallen trees and everything else in there. So, and that's going to be more in DNR or whatever has to do that.
You say theirs, so where?
Well, our property ditch ends where our property is, that's all clear. Because when the county had us do that, Ray Byral had us remove all our trees, clean everything out, and put our own culverts in. That's why we're responsible for our own culverts, even though it's a county ditch. I didn't understand that.
County ditch, Mark?
Shows on the map as county ditch flood.
Yep.
Okay.
So we bear that expense plus all the other expensive fencing and to keep it going. But as far as being hard to farm, in order for us to farm it with today's equipment, we probably would have to cover up the ditch. And we don't see that as feasible or even practical. So this will have us provide us money. Otherwise, we got to take another $3,000 this year into the fencing for our cattle if we want to run them there again. Because we got trees falling down from neighbors and everything else. So, I mean, it's a very expensive deal for us when you include the tree removal, the culverts, the fencing, and then even when we rent the land out, they hit the fence because they can't make the turns. You know, and it's kind of an issue with me that I believe, Adam can answer that, is that solar park annexed into Winstead? Montgomery. It says,
where the city limits, yeah.
yeah, so they do have their own agenda. I think he wants to put another solar garden in the way I read, but it's possible. So they'd be competing against us for this megawatt too, so. But we could use the money to keep our farm resilient, and we're going to the 4th generation. I know they're going to expand eventually, but they got the leek farm, which went under, the developer went under. I don't know how many acres is that, 160? Something like that, if I remember right. I don't know for sure. And they also got the 2nd edition in Grass Lake to do, so they in the next 10 to 15 to 20 years, they got enough housing for 200 houses, I would assume. And then our land borders Wright County. So unless they have an agreement, which they can cross, I know, county lines, but they're not going to expand much more than our farm in under their authority unless they work together with them.
Your farm is on the county line?
Yep, it runs right along 56. Butts right up against 56. So.
Questions for Simon? Thank you.
Oh, I just have one more comment. The North Gate is about 47 years old already. That was done in the mid-70s. And to the east is Pheasant Run. That's around 26 years. So I don't see a sudden impact on this 10.5 acres affecting the city. If they want, they can go around us, or they could have annexed it and condemned it if they wanted it, if it's that privy to them. Thank you.
And you commented, and you sent an email, and I know it's, Mike just cautioned us of using the amendments, but does it come under the hard to farm, Mark?
The definitions, which we'll get into, that's something the board would have.
You have to go by the rules that are in effect at the time of the application. You can't consider that. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? Board, any questions to anybody that's here? To Brittany or Paula or?
Adam, if it is a floodplain, why would you be building any houses in there?
Well, I'm not sure that it is a floodplain. I don't know that it is or it isn't. We haven't engineered that far in terms of true engineering. Now, you can certainly build it in a floodplain as long as you mitigate the floodplain accordingly. So just because it's a floodplain doesn't mean that it can't be built in. Take additional steps to build in a floodplain. So. Now, again, that's just one parcel or one area of future development.
Right.
So with that future development being designated as residential, from our perspective, solar would not be a compatible use within a residential area, regarding if, whether or not that particular parcel is developed as residential or not. So again, our long-term plan for orderly development of that area with infrastructure, et cetera, is for low to medium density residential. Any other questions?
Thanks. Any other questions?
So the city doesn't have their, like we do, the 2-mile radius around the city?
We don't have an explicit zoning document agreement with McLeod County or Winstead Township. Now, we do have a future growth plan where we worked in partnership with Winstead Township and McLeod County on that plan, but it's not an official agreement. It's just a plan. Now, we haven't taken the steps to annex property around our adjacent borders. Maybe we should have. Maybe we should be more aggressive and had zoning discretion, true zoning discretion around the municipal borders of Winstead. But we thought we could work in partnership with McLeod County and Winstead Township on those zoning decisions, so that way we can have the appropriate growth area to allow for growth of both McLeod County, Winstead, and Winstead Township.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Cities have authority to enact a zoning outside of their geographic boundaries up to 2 miles. The only city in McLeod County that has done that is the city of Hutchinson, and we have a joint planning board that is in effect. And I appreciate the fact that the city wishes to work with the county, but you have to go by the ordinance that is in effect at the time of the application. And if it isn't in the ordinance at the time of the application, then you cannot consider it.
Right. So we don't have that planning document, official agreement in place with McLeod County, but we have discussed with Winstead Township and McLeod County our future growth areas for our growth plans. So, thank you.
Thanks, Adam. More questions?
Mr. Chair, so it is the part with, and thank you, Adam, for coming today. You're, or probably where I'm caught up a little bit, I'm very familiar with Hutchinson Joint Planning Area. They have a separate ordinance. Familiar with some of the more contentious applications that have been in there, where those applicants, typically say, well, it's why is the city telling us what we can and can't do with our own land until it's annexed in? And they have a very good point with that. So I guess until it's annexed in, it is viewed more under the county policies and so forth. Looking at the aerial, I can see that we have houses involved. I can see that the backside is a ditch. I can see where somebody can say that this is a use that maybe production agriculture is somewhat of a hardship today. You know, again, that's up to the landowner. What do they want to do with their land? Do they want to try it for a solar application, or do they want to plat it out and put the houses into what you are bringing up as probably the intentions of the city's plans at this point? It is a plan. I guess you don't have an ordinance in place that says that we can't do this yet, but I'm still kind of struggling with what to do with that. After that, I mean, I've said this so many times sitting here. This is very familiar to me with the issues of the feedlot and the knot in my backyard. I'm trying not to get caught up in those reasons. This is the landowner's choice, so what they want to do with their land at this point, giving you know, and trying to weigh it out with the neighbors' concerns. And I'm trying to, when I hear those reasons, I sit here trying to figure out, well, how many of those are something that there's really some validity to, I guess, in my opinion, as I sit here. The stray voltage thing, gosh, I've been in and out of that so many times, I'm not even going to go there. You know, what causes pollution, what doesn't cause pollution. In general, people cause pollution, and so putting a lot of houses in there perhaps has a weight of pollution as well. But that could be a day-long argument, so it's not worth going too deep into that either. At this point, I'm probably kind of leaning on granting the application, or that's where my vote would go, but I would like to hear some more comments from other board members first, I guess. So.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there any other comments from Nathan? Do you have anything that's up in your area? So.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I am not leaning the same direction as Paul on this, and I fall back on what Winstead Township's response was to the application, as well as the city of Winstead. I believe we do these comprehensive plans, or I should say the city works on these comprehensive plans to kind of have a say in what happens in their 2-mile radius of their boundaries. Had we known this was coming, this would have pushed annexation on the property, so the city would have control. That's not the route that was taken out of respect for the township, I believe. The township has already given up property to the city, and maybe a little too early, especially with the downturn in the economy, you know, that we've experienced since 2008. But I think we are on the verge of expansion. I think city is a growth area, or Winstead is in a growth area. The application is bordered on 3 sides by the city. I don't see this approval as being a worthy request for us to be acting on.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any others? I probably gave this one more thought than all of them that I had. I have to weigh in on Mr. Young's points and judge it for today. And I've discussed it with our conditional, or with Mark as well, trying to make the right decisions. But I like Commissioner Wright, have to deal the cards I've got today, and I'm probably as well leaning, you know, after the stuff that we've went through with our lawsuits on different applications, I'm probably leaning towards approving it as well.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Mark, can you go over them? I understand, and I've read it, and you've read it, but it's just kind of the pulse of the Planning Commission. Past 4-1, often it doesn't, you know, nobody's really in sync here, I guess is.
Yeah, we've been through this long,
Yeah.
drawn-out issue with these applications, and, to what Commissioner Wright had brought up, some of the concerns that are brought forward from a township and some of them that are brought forward from applicants or from the area are justified. Some aren't, because there's no fact. There's no basis of fact. We don't have testimony or, factual information to be able to present as a finding in our defense if it's something that doesn't fit with the area. So the Planning Commission has taken into consideration where we are today in regards to the appeal that we got back, understanding that we are in the process of working on an amendment. Again, I agree with Mr. Young on that's something that will be decided at a later time here. But so we're trying to get in line, get in sync, put those review standards in our ordinance, and that's where our Planning Commission really is today. I think if I had to speak in regards to the discussion that occurred at the Planning Commission in the public hearing, this particular situation, the concerns that exist are obviously location, proximity to the municipality. And the municipality does have the authority under statute to be able to plan for those areas in and around the city without having control to have that final decision. So similar to the city of Hutchinson, if Hutch did not have a joint planning area and a separate ordinance that governs that area, they still would have the authority to plan for that area and then come forward and comment on official controls once we give them notice. Statutorily, we have to give them notice 2 miles from the city boundary, any city boundary of an official control. We have to give that municipality notice of what's going on, and they have opportunity to comment. So I'm not sure if I answered your question.
You did. I guess I was trying to get the pulse of the meeting, not on the paper.
A lot of discussion. There was a lot of representation there. The emails I read and Ms. Raymond, what she had brought up, majority of the comments from the constituents were voiced at the public hearing, which is why I didn't go through that again. It's captured in the record of that meeting. And these 2 emails I brought forward again are what we received after the public hearing. But there were a number of residents there, and there were concerns.
I don't know if I have a question or a comment or what this falls into, but obviously Winstead Township or that whole area has been dealing with solar for a long time, long before I came in. And again, trying to make this decision after everything that we've gone through with our appeals and I guess I'd ask Winstead why. I don't see the preparation that should have been done to force a compromise, lack of a better word, to not have to get it to this point. I don't know if you have a comment on that, Adam. I just don't. You're new as well, and Mark's been at this a while, but it'd be a lot easier if there would have been some precautions taken ahead of time. And I know that area has been dealing with these solar farms for a long, long time.
Well, to Mark's point, a state statute does give us authority to plan for the area adjacent to the city limits. Now, we don't have ordinances in place, but we do have the authority to plan for it, so that's what we've been doing. We've been putting together future planning documents. We don't have the ordinances in place, and all of that, Mr. Schmaltz's point, is some of it is out of respect to Winstead Township and the landowners, et cetera. I guess the way I put it, we just weren't aggressive in taking some of the zoning discretion over those property owners. Is that a mistake on our end? Maybe, maybe not. But again, a lot of those discussions were also prior to my time with the city of Winstead, so I can't comment exactly on those details. Okay?
What obligations does the county have to respect their requests or their planning?
There's a guy that has the answer right there.
You have the obligation of enforcing what your ordinance is, and if they don't have an ordinance that is contrary, their requests, if you could grant them within our ordinance, then you might be able to do it, but I don't see how their requests can be followed with the ordinance that we currently have. We don't currently have a setback in our ordinance from any residences. We don't have any testimony about decrease in land values, and we have a Court of Appeals opinion saying that what we had at a prior hearing, not this one, that was similar about the values was insufficient. So we had a similar record in a prior case, and we said no, and the Court of Appeals said, you have to do it.
Commissioner Luthens, does that answer your question, or you?
It's a tough one. I don't know. The landowner isn't going to lose. They're going to win either way. The value of their land going for development or the solar garden. You agree on that?
It depends when it's gonna happen. You know, if I have to farm that for another 20 years, I'll be sticking more money into that property and not getting paid for it.
So the city hasn't given you a plan when they're going to start?
Nope. They haven't even talked to us about any future expansion or anything.
If there's going to be questions, we ought to have people approach the microphone to answer the questions.
Do you want to pursue it? Or Simon, come on up. State your name again.
Yeah, Simon Sterner, 821 6th Street North, Winstead. And as far as the investment we made into that, we put tiling in, and it's still not enough. You know, we're going to have to do more tiling, and to invest that much in probably about 8 acres of actually tillable land, it's not worth it to us to invest, but to us it means everything, because if the city gets that property, the progress of our farm is dead. It's dead, because then there would be, again, touching our actual main farm, because that property is in between. So that keeps us viable for the 4th generation, the 5th generation if we want, and that is our intention.
Has the city come to you before today with any plans?
Oh, and I've been there since 1968, and my parents owned it. We actually got it just, we're probably, what, 17 years, Steve? Roughly owners of that land, and no developers ever contacted us. We've had, I've had one person that would take the land off our hands. I ended up with 2 restraining orders just to keep farming it, so it got very expensive. I had to have lawyers to do anything on my farm, and especially on that acreage. And what bothers me more is where the city has their solar garden, it's right by Winstock. If there's worries about anything with 30 to 60,000 people, that would be more of a concern to me than anything else. So, I mean, if they meet the same standards as Novel meets, it should be good enough. I don't know the problem, but like I say, I don't know when they're going to expand.
Thank you.
Any more questions for Simon?
Mr. Chair, I have a question for
Go
Mark.
ahead.
Not for Simon, but for Mark, I guess.
Okay.
The landscape buffer plan or vegetative management plan, do you have an explanation of what they will be using for basically the cover inside the fence area?
And that's something that we, if approved, we will work with Novel on, but it's a pollinator mix, I do believe. Is that correct?
Around Brittany Kresbach again from Novel. Around the array would be a pollinator grass mix, and then underneath the arrays is a native grass mix. So enhancing ecosystem services and erosion, and also, of course, we provide SWIP and erosion control analysis for any other worries.
Brittany, before you sit down, pollinator mix is expensive to maintain, and I'm partial to a pollinator mix as well, but and not pertaining to Novel, but I in some of the places where I've been around in other counties, weed management, lack of another word, has been pretty poor. So I mean, that's just something that we have a good department that when these things go in, they need to be followed. So that's all I've got to say right now on caution of upholding these agreements, because we've been making some compromises, and the only way they're any good is if we enforce them.
Yeah, and you're not the only one to voice that, concern or issue. So it is definitely on our radar, and it is a condition of approval, I believe. So, if we don't uphold it, then we're in violation of our permit, and therefore then serious action can be taken. But we, we're continuously improving our maintenance plan. We're learning as we go, just like everybody else, because this is a newer development and energy production for the state. So we're continuously improving it, and we, of course, provide contact for 24/7, notification of any issues. And I believe we're doing seasonal site visits as well to make sure we're not in violation of that condition.
Thank you.
You bet.
As long as she's there, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
So you are stating that you'll be using a pollinator mix. I'm just wondering if we shouldn't put that exact language within the conditions, just so that we know that that is for sure part of it, so.
So they have that they have it into a document that they submitted in the application. One of the reasons we don't bring that specific forward is because we get our SWCD involved, so they can do a review in regards to exactly what the plant species are and the trees, so that we know that they're able to keep that alive. Early stages of some of these that have gone in, there has been circumstance where what's been planted hasn't survived. So you have to go in and amend what the plan was. So that's the reasoning for a little bit of the vagueness in the condition. And it was really so that we can incorporate our SWCD in to do that review if there is an approval in regards to the project.
Is that overall in that
They've specified, specifically the trees and some of the grass mixes they're going to use. And we've sent that across to our SWCD office for review. And, the general statement is that it looks acceptable, it looks good, but we do a little bit deeper dive in regards to some of that to make sure that soil conditions are conducive to what they've spent.
And actually, I understand that, Mark and Brittany. That's why I brought it up, because I work with pollinators myself, and they're tough. They're tough. It takes some extra money, and I'm just cautioning. I just wanted to know. I agree with Commissioner Wright that if that's in there, some years you have to start over. So, on pollinator mix. So, I mean, that has to be built in there somewhere, and I'm all right the way you're put it in there, Mr. Wright. I don't, or Commissioner.
Yeah, I think, the last application we saw a very intriguing joint effort between organic gardens and that solar field, and that's actually catching on in a lot of places. And it creates a dual purpose for the site. And we're definitely short to pollinators out there. There's a lot of programs that encourage a lot of pollinator growth, and I just want to try and perhaps make sure that there's some dual purpose use of this property if the application is approved, that pollinator mix is it definitely adds to the look of the site. It is extra work, as Commissioner Kruger brought up, but it creates some added grass. For sure.
Yes, the
Mr.
habitat
Chair,
islands
if I
are
may,
important.
Mark, the only item that relates to management of vegetation is item 5 in the conditions, and that looks like it extends to only the perimeter vegetation. Is that correct?
A landscape buffer plan and vegetative management plan. So.
But then it talks about vegetative shrubbery along the exterior perimeter.
And it says included in the plan shall be. So if we are requesting a vegetative management plan for the entire project to be verified, so that is encompassed of that 10-acre leased area.
And if you want to amend that condition number 5 to specifically include that, you are free to do that.
Ideas, Mark, on how to incorporate that in there. I don't know. From what I know about pollinators, and I'm open for correction here. It's going to be kind of hard to have the whole field in pollinators. I mean, you're going to have to pick. It's hard to manage pollinators, and it's expensive.
So in regards to specificity to the plan, from our perspective, I don't want to get into the 25, 50%, 75% year over year to go out there and try to do a review and then have to bring the applicant back in because they're potentially not meeting a condition. Yeah. Concern that I have as staff. So that vegetative management plan, what's been provided, what's been acknowledged that they are intending to do, I agree with the comment that Commissioner Kruger made. It's about weed control. They're trying to plant as many natives and pollinators as they can. That creates a deeper, broader root base so that it crowds out some of the noxious that we have to fight as well. So ideas in regards to specificity, I don't have any. It's intentionally left the way it was. This is a condition that I know has been thought out at length over the last 5+ years in regards to dealing with projects like this, and it gives it a little bit of a leeway there to be able to fix a potential problem if one exists, and then again, a little bit deeper dive in regards to true soil conditions throughout that entire project area, leased area.
Do you want to add something to the effect of also included in the vegetation plan shall be native species and pollinators to ensure that weeds are controlled, or something of that sort?
I would agree with Mr. Young that we need to at least have the incentive in there or something to make sure, and obviously I'm spending the time on this to make sure that we are getting it on record that, you know, if we're going to take this road, that we're expecting some accountability from our providers. I got a question back there. Go ahead, come on up.
Not related to grasses, though.
If I may, just on that thought, so in regards to section number 5, condition 5, as Mr. Young had alluded, you know, it could read a landscape buffer shall be provided to the Environmental Service Office with a combination of native species and pollinator grasses. And that would then allow for both to be used in that lease area.
Would that be okay with the applicants?
Simon and Novel?
Yeah, of course. Mr. Chair.
Go ahead. Oh, Adam, Katie had her hand up. I'm sorry to do this to you, but she had her hand up.
Hello, Katie Raymond. I just want to speak to kind of the heartbeat of Winstead and our area. I know a lot of the residents work, and they weren't informed specifically in writing or anything of this meeting. But I would just ask as commissioners that you really also consider the heartbeat of the people. I love our home. I love our neighborhood. I probably would actually consider selling at that point if I had a solar garden in the back of my home. I do have concern for safety of solar leakage. So I'm just asking you to consider the heart of the people, and if you would want something immediately adjacent to your own home, and if you had the power to help the people here at Winstead. And also just that as commissioners in representing our county and wanting our county to benefit, this does benefit one person, but it effectively would stop the northwest expansion of Winstead. And we have a great here. I think we have so much going for us, but I don't think anyone would want to come and purchase property next to a solar field. So it would just abut it. So I really, all the details of the policies and things, I'm asking you to consider just the heart of the people. Thank you.
Thank you. Adam?
Mr. Chairman, Adam Burkles, Winstead City Administrator. So I'm just looking for a little bit of clarification then from my perspective, because with McLeod County ordinances, planning ordinance specifically being created to protect all residents here in McLeod County. So your ordinance, McLeod County Ordinance, Section 17, Subdivision 7, states the establishment of a conditional use will not impede the normal or orderly development and improvement of surrounding vacant property for use predominant to the area. So again, in terms of looking for findings of facts of why we would either allow or not allow a conditional use, that seems to be a finding of fact based on your ordinance. Again, this is a conditional use application. This is not a permitted use within the zoning ordinance. It's a conditional use. So again, with your findings of fact.
Does the city of Winstead have a present plan for residential expansion into that area?
We do not have a development in front of us.
That's the answer to your question.
But we do have that designated within our future growth area.
We have to deal with the world as it is, not as we want it to be.
Yeah. We got some.
I'm Lori Sterner. I live at 821 6th Street North. I think we have to provide green, for the future generations, because we pretty much took away from them. We need to get cleaner power and stuff. I mean, I'm a third generation on the farm. I want to keep farming, but I also would like to retire because I've been working for 40-plus years. And in order to do that, we have to figure out a way to make a living on this farmland. So if you have any questions from me, should we not go forward? Should we not go forward and provide for future generations clean air so that they can survive? It's our legacy to the next generation.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
question maybe for Mark or Brittany. What would be the setback on the plan from, let's say, where the panels are versus the nearest house in Pheasant Run? How many feet?
So right now, there's going to be a minimum of 50 feet from the property boundary. So keep in mind, there's houses that are further from that property boundary to the south. I would have to measure. If I had to guess, an educated guess, I would say there's over 100 feet probably distance between the housing and where the panels will be mounted.
Any other questions?
My follow-up comment, Mr. Chairman, would be 100 feet sounds awfully close to a panel to a house.
Is that to the panel or is that to the property line?
So if you look at the staff report that was submitted as part of the packet, in there, it kind of will also address a concern in regards to the floodplain. It will show where the houses are on the aerial photo that abut to the south. It'll show you the red area where the boundary of the lease area is. The hatched area that's red along the ditch shows floodplain, so that can answer some of those questions. And so in proximity, if these panels are 50 feet to the north, looking at where the houses are, a lot of those houses along Northgate Drive are centered fairly close to the boulevard. And with that being said, I don't know the distance, the depth of those lots, but again, that's the area that I'm making an educated guess on, because there is some area there. Some may be more than that. I can't imagine that any are less than that because they all look fairly consistent in regards to, being in parallel to the road right away, the boulevard. So, but it just gives you a perspective in regards on that staff report, that aerial photo that does show where those houses are located to the property line.
What's the setback of a residence from a center line of a county road?
The setback for a residence to a county road is 130 feet from the center line.
And the center line includes 12 feet of pavement, plus then there's the 6 or 8 foot shoulder.
Mr. Chair, did we have any language yet on the, kind of lost track of what I was writing down here, but the native grass versus pollinators? I think there was, that the site plan include native grasses and pollinator mix. Was that kind of how we settled with that?
Correct. I don't know how he said it, but. And normally I don't like to be a little vague that way, but I don't. I know the process of getting it established, and you can luck out the first year and get it all right, but you can end up 3 years of work.
Yep. So as an amendment to number 5 as a condition, a landscape buffer plan and vegetative management plan shall be provided to the Environmental Service Office with a combination of native species grasses and pollinator grasses included. And then the rest of that, what talks about included in the plan shall be a row of healthy maintained 4-foot trees, so forth.
I guess just a follow-up question to that is, it doesn't necessarily have to be the whole acreage. I just don't want to be vague. I just have somebody say that, well, the whole thing isn't in it, into the pollinators, because they may have to manage it into strips in around the edges or wherever it's convenient. That I just happen to know how that works, and it's tough to do. I can't ask them to, if you get a thistle patch, you're going to have to take it out and redo it. So just so we're together on that condition.
So the intent of that condition is specific to what you had just brought up in regards to noxious weeds. So the leased area that they have, we have to ensure that we aren't creating a problem of it being unmaintained in and around the perimeter of the panel of the fenced area. So therefore, if it does get approved, that condition is in place to try to ensure that we don't have that issue with noxious weeds, whether it be cockleburr, thistle, whatever it is, so.
I have a question for Novel. How far, I think Mark tried to answer the question that came up with how far would the first solar panel be from a house, but he's not aware of how you guys have designed that on the inside. So how far do you put your panels inside the fence?
Yeah, so if you reference, Brittany Krebsbach from Novel again, referencing our site plans, I don't have the specific setback, but from the panel, we have a 20-foot drive path between the fence and array. And then in between the fence and the lease line is our electrical easement. So that's about another 20 to 30 feet, and then about another almost 20 feet to even the property line. And then, like Mark said, most of those homes appear to be closer to the boulevard. So I would say the setback is closer to 150 feet than 100. But like I said, we don't have that exact setback written into our plans, but that's kind of what I'm seeing from like a scale perspective and best estimate.
Mr. Young, can we put 130 feet matching the distance from the center of the road to a home? Can we put that within here? That
Is it in your ordinance?
No.
Then you can't.
So not even as a condition, though?
No.
Okay, all right, that's out. All right, I think we need to go somewhere here. I'm going to make a motion to approve the application, however, adding the language to include native grasses and pollinators be included within the vegetative management plan.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Wright to approve the permit with the added verbiage on vegetation. Is there a second? I'll second it. Is there any discussion? Any more discussion?
I did. I'll take that. Made the motion after a lot of discussion. Again, I'm going with it is the property owner's choice, so what they want to do with it. I will definitely acknowledge and thank Adam for coming with the comments from Winstead, but you lack an ordinance, I guess, at this point in order to tell us differently. And maybe this is the motivation to pursue that. I know with working within the Hutchinson Joint Planning Area that it's very, that can be difficult to set those up and difficult to continue to work with. However, it does create an ordinance that says here's what happens differently inside that boundary. But I'm seeing this as under the county's ordinance, and I think it works for me. And so that's why I made the motion, and I think that this will work the way I see it.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Commissioner.
We'll just real quick, we'll add, we have to work within our ordinance. That's been made very clear over and over again. So that's it.
And I agree. We have to work within our ordinance. I don't necessarily always like it either. I have been trying to be consistent as I can. Maybe that's why the studying of this whole permit has been tough, because I'm trying to stay consistent, and we've gone through two legal issues and not prevailed on our decisions. And so I have to do, I have to argue, or I have to make my decision off of the stuff that we have before us today. I read the email from Mr. Sterner, and it was probably one of my, he wrote a nice email on the situation he has there, and I while respecting the townships and the city, his email kind of prevailed in my mind. So I guess that's my part of discussion. Is there any commissioners have any other discussion?
Call the question.
Go ahead.
No, let's vote.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
The question has been called, but go ahead.
Oh, was it?
All in favor of approving this ordinance, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Roll call.
Negative? No.
Mr. Commissioner Wright?
Yes.
I am yes. Commissioner Nagel?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmaltz?
Negative.
The permit passes 3-2. All right, Mark, we're moving on to C, I believe.
Item B? Item B?
Or, I'm sorry.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chair. So second one, it is consideration of conditional use permit 21-14, application made by Scott Temple on behalf of Novel Energy Solutions, St. Paul, Minnesota, for essential services of a 1 megawatt community solar garden array system for electrical generation through solar energy. The applicant has secured a facility easement of approximately 10 acres from the property owner, Chad Stewie. This solar garden will be interconnected to an Xcel Energy substation and located in the agricultural district in Section 6 of Helen Township, south of the ditch. No wetland impacts are identified per the National Wetland Inventory NWI map. The Helen Township Board recommended approval at their August 19th, 2021 meeting. The McLeod County Planning Commission recommended approval at their August 25th, 2021 meeting with the following conditions. Number one, a bond or letter of credit in the amount of $172,800 be provided to McLeod County Environmental Services prior to any permits being issued. This surety reflects a cost to McLeod County of $40 per panel. Number two, the applicant shall restore the site to its original and natural state once the solar facility is no longer in use. Number three, contractor's proof of insurance during the construction of the facility shall be submitted. Number four, contact person and phone number for weed control and other concerns will be filed with the Environmental Service Office, and there shall be a placard posted at the entrance visible from, and it says Simon Sterners. That is a typo carried over from the last one. So it should read visible from the applicant's driveway, naming a contact person with a current phone number. Number five, a landscape buffer plan and vegetative management plan shall be provided to the Environmental Service Office. Included in the plan shall be a row of maintained healthy living 4-foot trees with vegetative shrubbery along the exterior perimeter of the project boundary. This buffer shall be planted and maintained to remain healthy and live. Number six, 10-foot agricultural fencing with 24-inch kick plates mounted at 45-degree angle toward the exterior of the project area shall be installed for site security and safety around the perimeter of the project area. Number seven, the applicant shall meet all National Pollution Discharge Elimination System NPDES permit requirements if approved, if required. Number eight, applicant shall preserve the existing drain tile and repair any tile if broken. Repairs shall be performed by a drainage contractor. Number nine, applicant shall apply for a McLeod County land use permit within 1 year if approved. Number 10, applicant shall submit an approved interconnection agreement from Xcel Energy within 1 year from the date of conditional use permit approval. And number 11, applicant shall provide a stray voltage test to McLeod County Environmental Services Office prior to construction and before energization. With that being said, I'll turn it back to the board. Novel is present. We did have residents that were at the public hearing for this request, but we did not have a negative reaction or negative denial from the township with this. They did not have concerns with this request.
And again, I don't know if I'm in order or not, but before we proceed, can we add that same verbiage to number 5?
Yeah, you have that authority to do that, so upon a motion, if we wanted that to be consistent, absolutely.
Would like to do that if we can.
Good point, Mr. Chair. We need that consistency.
So does that take a motion to do that?
Just include it
If so,
with
I think at this point, if we just take that discussion, if you will, if you're going to entertain discussion from the audience, and then upon a motion, we can just amend that to include that if we are going to make a motion for accepting this request.
I did, first, Brittany, do you want to come up and speak to that one, this permit?
Brittany again from Novel. I guess I really just want to, I would say the same kind of gist that I gave you guys. We did get township approval for this one, so of course a little less of struggle and so, but more than happy to include that verbiage for pollinator and native grasses. But no, this particular property is even a little more isolated. It is again surrounded by a ditch and has been considered hard to farm. We had a pre-application meeting with Mark, and he agreed kind of with that that perspective. So Yeah, I guess if you guys have any questions for me, that's great, but kind of the same, just the same conditions for this project and everything.
Any questions for Brittany? Thank you, Brittany.
You bet.
I did talk to some landowners out there. There's some pros and cons with the same arguments that we just went through, but I didn't see anybody come in today. So I guess we'll take it on that merit, that I talked to the landowner himself, and he's obviously interested in getting the permit. Doesn't want to create any battling. He's just interested in the permit pretty much for the same reasons that the last landowner was, so.
Do you want to include the same language?
We did do that.
Oh, okay. Very good.
Any questions?
No question. With the addition of the grasses and pollinators.
Motion made by Commissioner Nagel to approve the permit with the verbiage we used in the last one and what Mark just stated in number 5. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Luthens. Any more discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
So one last item for our office today, it'd be number C, and that is consider amending the current McLeod County zoning ordinance, sections 5, section 7, and section 17. The McLeod County Plan Commission heard this request at their June 23rd, 2021 meeting, in which it was tabled until August 25th, 2021 to allow time for further review. On August 25th, 2021, the McLeod County Planning Advisory Committee unanimously recommended approval to the following sections. Sections 5, Section 7, and Section 17, and I will walk through those amendments for the board. And just to note that I also did send that over to our attorney's office for review, and at that time he did not have negative comments in regards to how it was drafted. So with that being said, under Section 5, Subdivision 2 definitions, we would add a definition for solar energy systems. A solar energy system in which the primary purpose is to harvest energy by transforming solar energy into another form of energy or transferring heat from a collector to another medium using mechanical, electrical, or chemical means. Section 7 is our agricultural district. Subdivision 3, conditional uses. Currently, number 22 states electrical wind turbine generators. We would like to cross out and it would say electrical wind turbine generators greater than 40 kW, kilowatts, or 125 feet in height. We would add measured from natural grade. Strike and, it says communication towers, comma, and solar energy systems. So to that definition, we would be adding measured from natural grade as well as and solar energy systems. Under Section 17, conditional uses, the standards that we would be asking to be put in place are those for review. And these are recommendations that have come out of a decision from the Court of Appeals. So just strengthening the ordinance that we currently have in place. Section 17, number 15, states electrical wind turbine generators greater than 40 kW or 125 feet in height, communication towers, and solar energy systems. We would add a communication towers shall meet the requirements in Section 16, so there currently is a section already in place for our communication towers, cell towers, radio towers, etc. Letter B, electrical wind turbine generators greater than 40 kW or 125 feet measured from natural grade, and solar energy systems shall be placed on land that is considered hard to farm if the requested application is on a parcel or leased area 3 acres or greater in the agricultural district. Hard to farm is defined as a parcel or leased area that is 30% wooded, small, less than 10 acres, and irregular shaped, or soils that have a crop productivity index of less than 50 as scored on the United States Department of Agriculture, USDA, McLeod County Soil Survey issued November 1997. Letter C, electrical wind turbine generators greater than 40 kW or 125 feet in height, measured from natural grade, and solar energy systems shall be constructed from the closest point of the project area, 660 feet which is 1/8 of a mile from an existing or new dwelling not on the same parcel. Operational areas include fencing and solar array shall be located at a minimum of 50 feet from adjacent property lines. All other structure setbacks per section 7 shall be met. And the reference there is in regards to road setbacks and housing to commercial or industrial, those types of setbacks. Item D, electrical wind turbine generators greater than 40 kW or 125 feet in height, measured from natural grade, and solar energy systems shall submit an interconnection agreement, IA, from the utility provider with the application of a conditional use permit. E, electrical wind turbine generators greater than 40 kW or 125 feet in height, measured from natural grade, and solar energy systems shall submit a bond, letter of credit, or cash escrow to McLeod County Environmental Services for reclamation surety of the project prior to the assurance of the land use permit. F, all electrical wind turbine generators greater than 40 kW or 125 feet in height, measured from natural grade, and solar energy systems shall be in compliance with any applicable local, state, federal regulatory standards, including the State of Minnesota Uniform Building Code as amended and Minnesota State Electrical Code as amended. G, approved electrical wind turbine generators greater than 40 kW or 125 feet in height, measured from natural grade, and solar energy system components shall have an Underwriter's Laboratory UL listing. H, conditional use permit applications for electrical wind turbine generators greater than 40 kW or 125 feet in height, measured from natural grade, and solar energy systems under this section are not complete unless it contains the following. Number 1, site plan of existing conditions. Number 2, site plan of proposed conditions. Number 3, manufacturer specification and recommended installation methods for all major equipment, including solar panels, mounting systems, and foundations for poles, racks, or electrical wind generated tower. Number 4, the number of panels to be installed. Number 5, a description of the method of connecting the array to a building or substation. Number 6, a copy of the interconnection agreement with the local electric utility or a written explanation outlining why an interconnection agreement is not necessary. Number 7, a decommissioning plan to ensure that facilities are properly removed after their useful life. Decommissioning of electrical wind turbine generators greater than 40 kW or 125 feet in height, measured from natural grade, and solar energy systems must occur in the event they are not in use for 12 consecutive months. The plan shall include provisions for removal of all structures and foundations, restoration of soil and vegetation, and a plan ensuring final resources will be available to fully decommission the site. Number 8, a landscape screening plan and associated narrative shall be prepared by a licensed landscape architect for submittal with the application. H, construction standards for electrical wind turbine generators greater than 40 kW or 125 feet in height, measured from natural grade, and solar energy systems. They would be I, or number 1, foundations. The manufacturer's engineer or another qualified engineer shall certify that the foundation and design of the project is within accepted professional standards given local soil and climate conditions. 2, power and communication lines. Power and communication lines running between banks of solar panels and 2 electrical substations or interconnections with buildings shall be buried underground. Exceptions may be granted by the department in instances where shallow bedrock, water courses, or other elements of the natural landscape interfere with the ability to bury lines. And then this as a note for this particular amendment request, all items numerically listed in the subdivision below number 15 will be renumbered. So with that being said, I will turn it back to the board. We had a number of participants at the public hearing on the 25th that did discuss this at length. So at that time, if there are questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them. If not, I'll turn it back to the board.
Are we going to look at this as the block of all 3 of these? Is that correct?
Yes. This is the proposed amendment brought forward, recommended by our planning commission on unanimous vote.
Do you have any comments, Mr. Young, on what we're doing here?
Well, this addresses the setback issue. It addresses have the interconnection agreement prior to the conditional use process, which should deal with the majority of the issues that you have dealt with, that have been problems with these.
And how does this proceed if we approve these? Are we able to cite these? Is there a time period or anything else we have to go through to cite these in our ordinance?
Well, you're as a part of any ordinance process, you are required to have the public hearing you're required to enact it, you're required to publish it, you're required to record it. And once all of those are done, that's the effective date.
All right, so that should be understood when if we proceed with this, that's the procedure we need to expedite then. Board?
Seems like what Mr. Young said, it addresses a lot of the problems that we've been dealing with, so.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
I would like to thank Mark and the Planning Commission for their review and coming up with, this added language to our ordinance. And I'm going to be in support that we add this language to our current ordinance.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I just, on the setback, and I understand how they work from knowing the feedlot ordinance and so forth, but what happens if a current site wants to expand? Right now, they'd have to stay with an eighth mile apart from each other, correct?
So current expansion of existing site, if this is approved, they would have to meet that 660. If they can't, they'd have to apply for a variance. They have the opportunity to ask for relief if they can prove practical difficulty through statute.
But the setback sticks as far as from one site to another, though.
That is correct. It's reciprocal.
It's reciprocal, and that's what eclipses on the feedlot ordinance as well sometimes.
It's reciprocating.
You have to maintain distance between feedlot operators, which has never made a whole lot of sense to me in the past, but you have to maintain the setback as a setback from everything. So that's the one. I mean, if you have an area that has one solar, garden or whatever you want to call it already, why not put another one abutting to it? But if we adopt setbacks, it's just the way it has to be. There's space from everything, so.
And there are developers here that you can certainly ask this question to, because I'm by no means the expert with dealing with Xcel Energy, but community solar application to the power provider, they are limited to 1 megawatt. So if there's a 1 megawatt project, if they apply for another interconnection of another megawatt adjacent to their current project, chances of getting that from the power provider, I believe, are very little.
And is that because they can't handle, I don't know if that's a question for Brittany or Paula, is that because it makes sense to me as well, as why would you have to separate it, but is it an internal issue or?
So, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, essentially what it is that Excel has a co-location requirement stating that you can't have common source of development, common ownership, etc., basically within a 1 mile proximity. However, as is the case up on 9 and 7, you'll notice you have like 3 separate solar gardens there, but it's 3 separate developers. So if you have this provision in your ordinance, that's going to prohibit another developer from clustering in that area. To further expand upon the Excel's co-location deal, if you as a develop, and let's now we just obtained the permits for the Sterner and Stewie projects, obviously a mile apart or more than, but let's say we were to build one of those, and then if 6 months later we wanted to come try a new application, as long as it's everything separate about it, and if we would have maybe transferred ownership, we would be able to develop right next to it. Obviously not if you've got this 660 foot, but what that's going to do essentially is remove the clustering of these land uses and spread them out, which are going to impact more people. What makes it a little bit difficult also is that typically from a cost perspective, you need to be within a certain distance of a substation and a 3-phase line, because the further out you go, the more cost prohibitive it gets, particularly because we're only limited to these 1 megawatts. If it could be a bigger 5 megawatt, for example, you can afford to do more upgrades. So that's kind of how that, hopefully I answered your question. I kind of babbled, and I apologize.
Well, I think you did, and you didn't babble, but I'm more confused now than I was before. But
well, I'm sorry. That
Mark,
is definitely.
what is our language with regard to the setback?
It is under.
Mark, excuse me, Mark.
I'm sorry.
I'll read it one more time. So in regards to the setback requirement that we have on here, it's under letter C. Electrical wind turbine generators greater than 40 kW or 125 feet in height measured from natural grade, and solar energy systems shall be constructed from the closest point of the project area 660 feet, 1/8 mile from any existing or new dwelling not on the same parcel.
So that setback doesn't apply to other solar facilities, correct?
Correct. Does not.
Now, that's what I was, and then.
And I didn't think it did, but I wanted, that's a good discussion to have.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure that reciprocal worked for that exactly, so now I'm.
Is a question or a comment? State your name.
Hi, I'm Brian Horseman. I live at 24425 Dairy Avenue, Winstead. The reason why I'm coming up here is because I asked the Planning Commission why they thought 660 feet or 1/8 of a mile was the appropriate distance. And the only answer I got at the time, basically, from my understanding, was because we can't. And they acted like it was more than reasonable to have that setback. And so I'm just asking why 660 feet is the right number. I got some numbers, and I don't know if they're right, but these are the numbers that I believe are right from other counties as far as setbacks from dwellings. Sibley County, 150 feet from dwelling. Setback. Meeker, no specific setback from dwelling. Wright County, 100 feet from dwelling. And then Carver County, no specific setback from dwelling. And the only reason why I bring that up is because 660 feet is a lot further than that. And I would think 1/16 of a mile or 330 feet would be more than reasonable for the landowner and for the homeowner. And I would also like some clarification on if the setback is because what the reasoning is. No one's given me a reason as far as if it's because you feel they're dangerous or if it's a visual impact thing or what the reason is.
Mark?
I guess, Mark?
So Carver County actually does have a 660-foot setback.
Mark, why don't you get at the microphone?
Carver County does have a 660-foot setback in ordinance currently. And the reasoning behind that and why we looked at and adopting that with the Planning Commission is in regards to, we have performance standards in our section 16 upon development, and it allows for that area in and around there to be able to be used to mitigate any potential concerns that we have. So we felt that the area that in that area, the Planning Commission felt that the area between there would allow for that mitigation, noise, glare, fumes, odors, whatever the case may be. So that was the basis for that setback distance. And again, it's for a house that is not to the property owner. So if there is a house on the property that the applicant is coming from, that doesn't need to be met.
And there's also a variance process.
And there also is a variance to ask for relief. That is
Yeah,
correct.
and that was my question. Thank you, Commissioner.
What is the setback on the feedlot, or the hog feedlot?
Yeah, and that was the secondary site, so I didn't really want to get into that, but to be consistent, so it's 600, we allow for expansion of an existing feedlot to within 600 feet of an existing home, or to a new built home. I shouldn't say new built because they have to be a minimum of 1/4 mile, but from an existing feedlot, permitted feedlot to an existing home, they could expand to within 660 feet. So it's consistent with that.
And the variance process allows for any mitigating any.
That was the concern in regards looking through some of that back feedlot language, so I appreciate Mr. Young bringing that up. That, looking back at some of the minutes that discussion ensured, they felt that they needed a buffer area in and around those projects to be able to deal with that mitigation. So there were a lot of farms that were established back in 1998, and not allowing them to expand would have been a detriment to that. So again, just being consistent with some of that language as well.
Did that answer any of your questions, or?
Yeah, I just think that the comparison of a solar garden to a feedlot as far as smells and noise is a stretch. And so I just disagree with the 660 feet.
And you think it ought to be 300 feet?
I think it should be a 1/16 of a mile, 330 feet. I think that's more than fair for both the homeowner and the property owner. That's all I have, unless you have more questions.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Chair, just in working with, for many years with the other ordinance that has setbacks in it, and I think that there probably should be a footage in here, but the more footage you get on a setback, the higher your chances are of pushing your potential sites out in the middle of the field, which cuts up the farmland, which is, again, something that we've been trying to avoid. So your odd corners and so forth, they get a little bit harder to work with the higher you have those numbers. But I don't know where the right number is to use, but it's just more things to think about.
I don't know the right answer either. I mean, bringing up these points, I think about hard-to-farm areas that you may be able to put 2 on and make it the right project, but that ordinance may stop that. You know, I don't know. I don't know what the right one is either. You got to pick a number and then hope the variance project process works. I guess I don't have a better answer than that. Because we're dealing with more than one power. You know, my reading through this is not just there's more than one power source.
Well, there aren't a whole lot of odors coming out of these things, and I think odors were the biggest issue with the hog feedlots.
Yep.
Yes, they were.
And you folks run to get the job to pick the number, so that's what
I
you
know. That's why we get the big bucks.
I guess I'm fine with the number because of the variance process. Maybe that's creating more work, or maybe that's dangerous in and of itself, but I guess I'm okay with moving forward with that number.
The problem with that is that they're required to show hardship, and you can't create your own hardship, so hardship is really hard to come up with.
Well, just for...
And maybe it should be.
For the sake of lightning conversation and give you a laugh, I'm a lot more than 660 feet from the ground. If it's northwest wind, that smell will knock your socks right off. So, but it's you know, it's good for our economy to have Seneca there. So I mean, we all have our good and bad things we have to deal with.
Did you have something, Mr.?
Yeah, I guess, Brittany Fredbuck from Novel again. I guess I just did want to add that, you know, relying on a variance, like that's not really the point. That is somewhat of a poor planning practice. And then my main point was, like what Commissioner Wright noted, is that this does push it to the middle of a field, and then that makes it even harder for the farmer to make the most, you know, the maximum efficiency and land to farm and things like that. But yeah, I would just state that relying on a variance is considered a fairly poor practice because of that hardship that you have to prove. And I would echo everything that the young gentleman shared. And in addition, Chisago County has 275 feet setback, and Benton County has 300-foot setback from residential dwellings. And those have already killed many projects that we've pursued. It's actually, yeah, more than you would think, I guess. But that was all.
And my thought was in the hard to farm it, because you could actually have a sliver of land along a road and a drainage ditch where you could actually do 2 facilities and use hard to farm land where that setback wouldn't allow you to do that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and like we've seen from a lot of neighbors, like their issue is seeing it. I mean, like others noted, you know, a solar farm isn't the same or similar to, you know, a hog farm or something. It's a passive use. It's low noise, smell, and distraction of a lot of sorts. So if view shed is the issue, you know, is you know, permitted or required landscaping or something, or the 10-foot fence or whatever it might be, like, is that more appropriate if view is the issue? Because you're not having smell from a solar panel or solar farm like you are the Green Giant or a hog farm. So just to take that passive use into consideration. Solar is actually a particularly good neighbor, and just to the pollution and solar leakage that was stated earlier, I studied biology for 4 years. I've studied a lot of these things in depth, and I have not come across language or studies to back that up. So I would say more houses or whatever would be more of a pollution concern than a passive neighboring use like a solar array. Thank you.
I agree with some of the other comments here. If the variance process is fair and equitable, that we should be able to handle them as they come along.
You don't want to tell people, get a variance. You want to,
I get that, but.
So, Mr. Chair,
So
if
is
I
that
may-
number, should that number change then?
So if I may, Mr. Chair, so
ahead.
Commissioner Nagel brought up a good point. It doesn't matter what number you choose. There's going to, and as you just heard from Ms. Gresbach, there's going to be potential variances in regards to whatever number you choose. The setback distance is really for siting concerns. So if there are areas that they're looking at potentially acquiring a lease agreement or ownership to put up, those are factors that hopefully they'll be looking at in acquiring their property to do a project. If there's circumstances that exist that this site makes sense because it has three-phase power, that it's considered maybe hard to farm, and it has everything else, but it can't quite meet a setback to a house, then there might be a hardship or the practical difficulty standard that statute currently says today that they could bring forward and ask. But it shouldn't be the standard of review, meaning it shouldn't be the first thing that they look to acquire to get the permit for a conditional use for a solar app.
and if you want to change it to 330 feet, you're free to do that here.
It's easy to change things, but then I never know if it overfills the 5-gallon pail.
Yeah, right. So, Mr. Chair, many years ago, when we set up the feedlot ordinance, I remember seeing a lot of maps with a lot of circles on. What is the effect of 660? What is the effect of a quarter mile, half mile setbacks? As we looked at piecing all that together. And I hate to just pick a number just because it sounds good. Today, I'd like to be able to cite it back to actually something that we see or something that we can work with. And so I don't know if I'm ready to approve or not approve any of these things today, because I think that making changes to an ordinance is a fairly substantial thing, and I'm not opposed to tabling this for a month as we perhaps ask some questions and need to sit back for 30 days or whatever it takes, and see where that comes together. But I know that we've seen maps where there's potential expansion areas because of their proximity to the substations. And I think that we should probably look at those and see what does 660, what does 330, what does a half-mile setback do to those. I think would be perhaps wise of us to take that opportunity so that we're not just picking a number out of the air, so that it actually, we can see what that effect is of that number. But I don't know, I just think that might be something that we could do. So
I agree with you, Commissioner. It is, but and it's a process question. Can we, rather than, we can still table it if it's so desired, but could we move forward with the process and review that? Because any number we pick could be in a workshop or whatever, could still be thrown out in our hearings. Could we still move forward with that idea in the hearing? You can't.
No, you have to include what the number is in your ordinance. So you either go with the numbers that you have, or you change the number, or you table the whole thing for 2 or 4 weeks. That's your option.
Mark, any more applications pending?
We have a hand up back there as well on what pertains to.
We have one current application for next month, correct?
Paula?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Paula Fitzgerald, Novel Energy Solutions. I know you're talking about the setback distance right now, but one other item that is very concerning to us as developers is in section 17, item D and number H6, and that is about having the interconnection agreement at the time that you submit your application for conditional use in order to get it deemed complete. So the process with Excel, they've got about a 6-stage process. It starts out with like initial engineering screens, supplemental review, system impact study, facility impact study, and then interconnection agreement. By the time that you pay everything up to your interconnection agreement, it's about $30,000 just for the studies. And then the interconnection agreements typically range from, I'm going to say, let's just say 100,000 up to 400,000 for most ones that would move forward. But the way it works is that Your new ordinance here is saying you have to have an interconnection agreement in order to have a complete application. The problem is, that means that you would have had to pay the $30,000 for the studies to get to that point, plus you only have 30 days to fund the IA once you get that. So if I were to get the interconnection application, or excuse me, interconnection agreement, come apply for a permit for a conditional use permit because I've got the interconnection agreement, I would have to actually fund that prior to receiving a permit. There's the two big deal breakers for any solar garden are the conditional use permit and the interconnection agreement. Everything else you can kind of work around, whether it's shifting, etc. So it's very, it doesn't make much sense from a planning perspective, and when I say planning, development planning perspective, to go, typically what you would do once you get the system impact study, you'd start your due diligence. You'd apply for your permits, you'd do etc. But you're not going to have the interconnection agreement at that point, and you wouldn't have paid all the fees. Another reason that this is problematic is that when you come to permitting, a lot of times you'll get there and you'll have to make changes, whether you might have to modify the driveway a little bit or change the setback a little bit or, you know, do any number of things that could change your actual application or your interconnection drawing. What you have to do then is go submit it back to Excel and get them to agree to what is called a material modification. If they say that you don't have a material modification, you're good to go. But if, let's say, if I had to move a project back 20 feet, and if I had to submit that to Excel and say it's a material modification, they could say, yes, it is. You lose your place in the queue, you're all the way back to the beginning. So it's very problematic to have that interconnection agreement being required as a part of a complete application. Just wanted to point that out.
Well, that might be a problem with Excel, because we would rather not have to deal with them unless we know it's a go for the permit. Because as you see, it creates a great deal of angst within communities to have these things pending and then not have it go through. And we fought the battle and won the scars for no good purpose.
And I completely understand that, but unfortunately, there's no way Excel's going to change their requirements just because they won't. So I'm just kind of wanted to put that on the table and just...
Maybe if enough counties do this, then they will.
Anyway, just wanted you to be aware of my concerns.
I have to say, I agree with that statement. That's the thing. We fight these obstacles, and I'm not passing the buck to you, but that is the truth until some people we deal with some of these things in other places where we stick a lot of money in, or individuals do, and at the end of the day, we can't be fast enough because of all the hurdles we have to go through, so.
Well, I will say, you know, if your intent is to stop solar, this is a good provision for your ordinance because it's gonna make things very problematic. So, which is unfortunate, but I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, and we just voted for 2 farms, so our intentions are not, but our intentions are to try to move forward properly.
Yeah. And that's what my thought is too, but this just is...
I already got a bunch of text messages on here on what I already did.
I'm sure.
Didn't do, so.
I'm sure.
So I have that situation to deal with as well. But,
I get it, but anyway, I just wanted to bring that to your attention, so thank you.
So I have a question for Paula. So if the
Yes, sir.
actual interconnection agreement is that difficult to leave in there, then what other language could we put in its place so that we know that when we go through, as you've already heard from 2 of them up here, when we go through the process, we put staff time into this, we've made neighbors upset at each other here, and then all of a sudden then we have an application, and I know of at least one for sure out there where it was a battle, and then they never built it afterwards. I mean, what a waste for all the time and all the anger involved. I like the interconnection agreement in there because it knows that we're that close before we do that with our staff time. However, I can see where it would create a pretty big hardship on your of it as well, but what else can we put in there so that we know that we're not going through all this for nothing?
I guess the only thing I could maybe suggest is that the interconnection agreement would be required prior to applying for a building permit. And then if you've got, you know, like a year period in which you'd have to start a project, or the conditional use permit would be void, maybe that would be a secondary way to do it, but that wouldn't necessarily avoid the public comment, et cetera.
We already have the 1 year in there. If you don't use your conditional use permit within a year, it's void.
It's gone, yeah.
Would Excel do like a letter, never mind, I'm not gonna, I was gonna say a letter of intent, or like they see everything working on their end, but I can poke holes in my own argument sitting here talking about it.
I mean, so you could, you know, require like a copy of like, you know, the screenshots show it's going through the process, et cetera. The part that makes it difficult is you might actually get into the system impact study phase, which is typically a $18,000 expense. You might get in there about halfway through, and Excel might say there's no capacity. So then you're going to stop, but then a facility impact study. So it's very problematic trying to, you know, typically your permitting process, typically from point A to Z would be about a 2-month process. So it's hard to gauge everything, but we always try to wait until we hit that system impact study phase, you know, because we're hoping that we would at least know prior to that point if there's going to be some major hurdles that we might have to overcome or avoid. So,
Mr. Young?
And our ordinance has to be for the entire county. It can't just be for items that are related to XL. So McLeod Co-op and Hutch Utilities and Glencoe Power, we have to have one set of rules that apply to the entire county.
Thank you, Paul.
yep, thank you. Appreciate your time.
I as well. I mean, sucks to follow rules. I find that out every day, but that's just, I mean, we made some changes today and kind of looked at some different things, and how do we want to handle these amendments?
Well, I hate to prolong it, but maybe we better look at those distances a little bit closer.
Well, if the case is that we have to come to the open hearing with a picked distance, then I would tend to agree.
Well, you have a distance in your ordinance, right, or in the proposed amendments now of 660. If you want to change that to 330, you can do that now, or you can do it at your continued next meeting. You don't have to have a set distance prior to your next meeting.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, I agree with that. So as staff, I'm speaking strictly as staff and going through the review process, it was really about consistency where that number came from, and the Planning Commission agreed with that. I'm not speaking for the Planning Commission if you are asking for me to take it back there, but it is going to just, you know, potentially create more length to this process that we've been at for over a year on already, and we've looked at what our neighbors have. That distance, in looking at a couple of the applications that we saw today, you can see that there is concern, obviously, with distance to housing that doesn't have housing on the project site, on the parcel that's being requested for the CUP. So whether you pick 660, 330, 200, that's the decision really that you have to make. It's more along the lines of that than it is along the lines of where these projects could really be built out. Because if they have to shift 200 feet one way or the other, chances are they probably, I mean, if it's that tight, I don't know that that's the right fit for the project area anyway. And that to me would be good planning. So I agree that, you know, obviously putting these in a certain area, McLeod County doesn't allow that, because if that were the case as staff, I would work with our Planning Commission and say we should designate areas for these and rezone those. But if you remember back when Senator Dill was looking at the urban sprawl issue, McLeod County adopted no rezonings outside of a 2-mile radius from any municipality unless it's contiguous to an already higher use. So that does restrict us from making these types of issues highway business, commercial, or industrial in nature. So it's a lot of information, a little background there, and Again, I'm not opposed to what was proposed earlier by Mr. Horstman of reducing that either. It's really about mitigation, giving us enough area to mitigate some of the concerns. And is 330 enough? If we would have acted on that application up by Winstead, you know, after these amendments, would the landowners have said 330 feet was enough? I can't answer that.
Can Commissioner Ryder, I mean, you brought up the concern, and it's a concern of mine as well, but I'd like to see these amendments move forward, and to Mr. Young's point, if we can do it today, I mean, are we willing to pick a number, whether it's 330, it seems to be the number we're tossing around, and move forward?
Yeah, I just brought up the examples, just, again, I was with that feedlot ordinance from day one, which is kind of paved the road as to why I'm sitting in this seat today. So I know how those setbacks can be a hindrance and a tool both at the same time, depending on what your goals are. So, whatever that number is, yep, the variance process is there. I was on the Board of Adjustment for, I think, 5 years before becoming a commissioner as well, and you have to come with a hardship. And if there's one, if the setbacks are that one hardship and everything else fits, well, then hopefully you can state that argument good enough to those sitting on the Board of Adjustment and get your variance. But there's no guarantee with that. That's a very, very important committee to have in its place, serving on the Board of Adjustment. But yeah, I don't know what the right number is for this at all, I guess.
Well, I guess the long and short of it for me is we'll find out if we picked a good number when we have an open hearing.
Yep.
So or leave it the same and they don't like, and our people don't like that as well. So I'm just looking for a compromise
If the
deal here.
660 doesn't make sense, and it sounds like it doesn't, then let's go to that 330 and let the process take care of itself, right?
I like that idea. That's my personal view. Any rest of you guys have any ideas? I'd like to see it move forward, and if we're going to end up tabling it sometime, I'd sooner see it if our open hearing doesn't go as expected, then regroup after that.
If we table it one more time, Mark might not come back, but. All right, so, Mike, help me. Would a motion be in order to approve all the proposed changes with the exception of the 660, moving that to 330?
That's fine.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Nagel to approve the amendments with the correction of 660 to or cutting it in half to 660 to 330. Is there a second?
I'll second that. Let's get to discussion.
Seconded by Commissioner Wright. Discussion.
So this means that we've adopted as well the connection agreement language, correct?
Yes, and I guess my intent of the motion was, and I was keeping that in mind, is that it still has the process, right? That it can go through and be changed and move if we need to, right? As more information comes forward on that.
You have the right to amend.
Right.
If you amend with this amendment, you can always come back and amend it again.
Yep. So I wanted to see where it landed when we came through. That was my intent.
You have already had the public hearing, right, at the...
That's correct.
At the Planning Commission.
Yep.
So what you approve here is the ordinance. It still has to be published, well, still has to be published.
Recorded.
And recorded, and then it takes effect.
And I'm, just for my comment, I'm not prepared to change the connection agreement right today. I mean, I think this proximity is fine, but.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may, so to answer Commissioner Nagel's question, upon enactment, if this gets adopted, we would record this. Upon a recording, and we get that back, it's enacted. So the date of recording, it enacts this language into ordinance. With that being said, if in time we find that there are some hardships, if you will, or misguidance in regards, or new information that comes out in regards to the planning of these sites, we always have that opportunity to come back, work with the boards, work with the Planning Commission to author another public hearing and to change what's been done. So if there are things out there And I serve on a couple committees with the state. I've been through Department of Commerce and Ag. They're still working on these. They've been working on these issues for a very long time. And I can tell you frustration from staff. There's just not a lot of guidance that we're getting in regards from them. So there's proposals out there, but that process takes time as well.
And I stand behind the motion, and if it goes up or down, it goes up or down, but, I mean, I also will say that I'm willing to come back and say this isn't working and we need to change it. So, I mean, with that, that's where I'm at with it.
And my last comment would be what we had in ordinance wasn't working. Obviously, we got two things thrown back at us, and so we're making some changes and trying to, I don't know, my word again, compromise if that's right, or work with an ordinance that we can actually try to defend and uphold. So I think we're doing our due diligence, but is there any more discussion?
Mr. Chair, I do not think the 330 feet is far enough. All our barns are at least 700 feet from one house to a barn, and that's pretty short distance. So if you're going to make these 300 feet from a house, you're not accomplishing that much.
The proposal was 330 feet, but
Motion on the floor.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Commissioner Smalls.
I wanted to make a comment that I want the amendment acted on. I want to get some language approved today. Point of clarification, though, if we leave the 330 feet in, that's the, how should I say it, the maximum setback. The setback can be reduced through variance. Am I correct on that statement?
That is correct. They do have the right to ask for relief to a nominal dimension.
So my follow-up to that comment or a clarification that Mark gave was that we could leave the 660 in place knowing that it can be less through the variance.
Correct.
We already went over that.
understand that the variance process is intended to be very difficult to overcome.
And I've had the same thinking until Mike reminded me, it shouldn't be a box to check variance. It shouldn't be, I mean, it shouldn't be that easy. It shouldn't be, then we shouldn't change, in my opinion. I mean, it just shouldn't be, there should be conditions to a variance, so. There's a motion on the floor, so I'm not gonna call the question up. Is there any more debate or any more discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of adopting the three changes to our amendments to our ordinance, which all includes changing 660 feet to 330 feet, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
The division, or Darrell?
No.
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
I'm yes.
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Smalls? Motion passes 4-1.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a 5-minute break. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Interesting meeting.
No, this is it.
And we can
Great. How long do you want us on for? Like, if we don't fly out, you're running, so we don't like to do it from your lunch. What do you think's a good time?
I don't have, I mean, I'm so irregular with my lunch, and I said, I'm really, that's got good, we can order lunch.
Okay, so that's good.
Sheila kind of
pretty open.
keeps us on track.
No, we haven't seen it last time. This is the first time. It's really nice.
Yeah. Well, for sure.
Oh, no problem.
Thanks for like, it's one of those things that things change and.
That's for that.
Only that I wanted to give an update as to how all the kids did at the state fair with the 4-H project. That's the only thing I would like to get into. The rest of it, I just watched, so.
Hi.
Welcome back. Okay, we'll bring the board meeting back to order. Today we'll dispense of the commissioners' calendars, excluding a report from Paul on the county, well, the county fair started the process to get the kids to the state fair, so I'm sure he's got a good report for us.
Sure. Thank you, Chairman. McLeod County Board of Commissioners has always been strong supporters of our 4-H program, and I work with that quite a bit. During the county and state fair, I just wanted to bring forward a report of how all the McLeod County kids did with their projects. I was down there for the day prior to the state fair, getting the kids situated mainly within the dairy exhibit area. But I can tell you that there were just a lot of very excited kids running all over that they could finally come back to the state fairgrounds and experience those state fair trips again. I do not have the summary that includes the general projects that you'd see up in the 4-H building itself. I just have the livestock so far because the judging just concluded yesterday with those general projects, and that would be like your craft projects, your wildlife projects, shop, and things like that. The first 5 days or 4 days of the state fair are designated towards all of the livestock encampments. And like normally happens, McLeod County kids did very, very well with their projects. When I read off some of these, just to explain them before I get there, the blue ribbon, of course, means the great project. State Fair runs it a little bit different, where you can get a purple ribbon in a project area, and that means excellent in all regards. And then the purples will typically compete against each other for champions and reserve champions. Herdsmanship is an award given to the whole species area. So swine are judged together, beef are judged together, dairy together, and that is your ability to keep your area clean, network with state fair guests as they come through, and also, just be very supportive of the 4-H program and how you conduct yourself for those days. The kids while they're there, they're asked to do more than just show their animals and keep everything clean. They're also asked to do an interview process where they're grilled over a lot of questions that deal with 4-H and their project areas, and then finalists are selected from that as well. So there's a lot of knowledge about your project area. It's not just grabbing a halter. So in the area of goats, a lot of blue ribbons there, as well as an interview finalist. The area of rabbits, we had some blue ribbons. A purple ribbon entry with poultry from McLeod County. We get into dairy, an area that I'm most familiar with. We had 13 project areas down there. We had an overall champion crossbred cow. We had I think it was 5 purple ribbons. We had 2 finalists out of that group, and first place in herdsmanship. There's one more contest there called showmanship that I need to expand on a little bit, and that is how you basically become one while showing your animal. Your animal has to behave very well. You have to have it perfectly clean, and that is a very, very tough contest to do well in. In the area of dairy, we had reserve champion advanced, went to McLeod County. When we get into the junior side, we had both grand champion and reserve grand champion showman coming to McLeod County. We get into the beef area, purple ribbon went to Charlotte Spring Calf, and that young lady, this was her first time at the Minnesota State Fair. She was an interview finalist as well. In the sheep area, we had a reserve champion Dorset ewe lamb, and also a finalist in the interview. In the swine area, a champion Berkshire gilt went to McLeod County, as well as several blue ribbons. One other spot in there, McLeod County is allowed to send one person to do a demonstration on the stage in front of the crowd at the state fair with a livestock theme along with their animal. And the person that did this, I got to add, this was my daughter, okay? She came out of that with a purple ribbon as well. So again, as what's happened in the past, a line of fantastic results and great ribbons followed those kids home from the Minnesota State Fair. That's it for that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Go ahead.
I just want to add the county fair, we haven't had really, I don't think we've had a meeting since then, but it was great and the staff did great. And the premium auction was a success. I just recommend you don't give your bidding number to Commissioner Kruger, because that's what happened to me, and I got a big bill at the end of it. So, but I'm happy to do it.
I tried to stay reasonable, but
No, it was just fine.
I'd like to make my comment as well. I had some comments at that auction, and I've had some other, that we are catering, my word again, I can't remember the exact words used, to young people, and yes, we are. Young people are probably important to keep going, whether it's in schools, and my comment back was, find me a group that we can support that helps trades or helps Americanism, government, you name it, I am promoting them. Veterans are the same way. I had our vets meeting last night. We're having a hard time. Suicide rates are going through the roof. And we are trying to get younger vets to come in. I think it's all linked together. I think there's a lot of things going on in this world today that I'm not going to debate, good or bad, but I think if we don't have young people, there's no sense in me wasting my time up here. I mean, if we don't have young people coming in and trying to take our jobs and lead, we're missing the mark.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
I'll just note that several of you have helped on many of our school groups throughout the year. You always do. You come to the lunches, you come to the meetings. When we're invited, we're there. So you've all attended those meetings. It's been great. You give up your time. And you also have done a lot for Student Government Day as a board and continue to. We couldn't because of the pandemic, but when it's been held, all of you have shown up. So that should be noted also.
Yeah, we've got our challenges, and they're never going to go away, but I had a couple comments on people that noticed that we're doing it, and we're doing it, and I'm proud of it, so that's that's all I have to say. Consider the county administration. Do you
Mr.
want to
Chair.
take them?
Sorry, I have an item to add
Okay,
to the
go ahead.
calendars. Thank you. I want to introduce our new Economic Development Director, Jim Hartshorn. He'll come on up. Jim started last week. You have all read about him, and in emails and the newspaper, I've known that we've been recruiting for some time. And he started last week, and we have been busy since then, so just wanted to have him get a minute with you guys. Thanks.
Sure.
Morning, Jim.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commission members.
Welcome.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. I'm really excited to get going, and Sheila has driven me around the county, so I'm getting to know the area as much as I can, and so sounds like there's a lot to know. There's a lot to do, so I'm just happy to be on board and ready to get going.
Well, I don't want to scare you, but you actually have the podium right now, so you got probably a million viewers. So if you want to tell a little bit about yourself, we can take a minute to do that if you like.
Sure. I've been doing this for over 30 years. I really enjoy what I do. I love economic development. I love the challenge of it and working with development and local folks. I went to a school close by. At the time, it was called Mankato State University, although I probably just aged myself because now it's called Minnesota State University at Mankato. So I'm a little familiar with that. I really enjoyed that. I guess I'm really looking forward to the challenges. I just saw one. I just sat through one of those now. But solar panel is an topic that a lot of areas, including where I just came from, are trying to tackle and stuff. And trying to bring in. So, if I have so many folks to meet, I have so many places to get to and see. I'm going to try to make it to a number of the city council meetings, and I'll always be here at the council, at the county meetings.
Excuse me for interrupting, Jim, but if you'd just comment on, I happen to know the answer, but you came out of a small communities. You and your wife both came out of small communities, and
I did.
And you're kind of back in one. So if you'd want to comment on that, I'd appreciate it.
I grew up in Washburn, Wisconsin. My wife grew up in Mosinee, Wisconsin. So at the time, Washburn was under 2,000 folks. So I think it's 2,000 now. So we've talked about coming back to a smaller area. So she hasn't exactly been here yet. But I plan to bring her back. And once I do my research, then on the area and stuff and find out where we want to be. But it's definitely an option we've talked about, moving this way. We want to be on the west side. I have one son, and we're empty nesters. I have one son in St. Cloud, and I have another one looking at Mankato. So we sort of want to be on the west side to be more closer to them, I guess. So this was a very good fit. So very eager to get going that way.
Well, thank you and welcome.
Thank you very much. If you have any questions, just please, my office is just down the road. So.
Sheila, do you have any more?
I do not, thank you.
We have to consider the renewal of the county administration's administrator employment agreement.
And I have had a chance to review it. If you agree with it, you ought to approve it. If not, make a suggestion or vote it down.
Chair, I move to approve.
Motion made by Commissioner Nagel to approve. Is there a second? I'll second it. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Item B, consider adopting Resolution 21-CB-27, appointing Economic Development Director to the CARES Act, it's not CARES Act, sorry, but the Coronavirus Relief Fund Committee. It was the CARES Act Committee at the beginning. So we started our CARES Act Coronavirus Relief Fund Committee when the CARES Act came about and the monies were distributed to the county. And we needed a committee to reference everything, find out what was going on, make recommendations to the board. That committee has now handled, this is our third round of funding with the ARPA, American Rescue Plan Act funding. And we knew that we would want the Economic Development Director to be on that committee. They would be a voting member. The last appointments were approved on August 4, 2020. The county board extended the appointments on December 29, 2020, and again on May 4, 2021. The committee was extended then through December 31, 2024.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Move to adopt Resolution 21-CB-27, appointing Economic Development Director to our Relief Fund Committee.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Smalls and seconded by Commissioner Nagel to approve the Resolution 21-CB-27. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Item C, notification of Sibley, Renville, McLeod Joint Drainage Authority public hearing on the petition received for the partial abandonment of lateral A11 of judicial ditch, or is it joint ditch? Sorry.
Could be either one.
Thank you. JD 11, Sibley, Renville, McLeod. The Drainage Authority will accept public comment regarding the position of the partial abandonment at the basement meeting room of the Sibley County Courthouse, 400 Court Avenue, Gaylord, Minnesota, on Wednesday, September 8th at 1:30 p.m. So tomorrow. Next, item D, notification of board workshop to be held following the county board meeting. Note that that's on Monday, September 20th, 2021, here at the McLeod County Government Center, 520 Chandler Avenue North, Glencoe, Minnesota, and that both of our meetings will be held that day and that week.
Just want to emphasize that it's Monday.
Yep.
We have a change, so
Thank you.
you're done. Any other business that needs to come forward to the board? Seeing none, all open forum. Any person have anything? Press relations, Karen? Thank you. A motion would be in order to recess until December 20th, 2021 at 9 a.m. at the Government Center, 520 Chandler Avenue, right where we're at.
So moved.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Luthens. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? We're recessed. Thank you, everyone.
favorite artists.
Hi, this is Elton John.